Okay, it says that I'm live. I'm going to start just a few minutes early. This actually is this afternoon, not this morning. But time flies. Let me get the desk adjusted here. Okay, it was great to have at least one person there at the starting line. Again, I received notice that a couple people won't be able to make it. Oh, there's 3 folks in there. So come on in. The water's fine. Let's start asking some questions. The latest Linux news with Linux Mint. Linux Mint Debian Edition 7 was released to beta, and you should be able to download it. Okay, somebody left, people popping in and out. Let's go ahead and take a look at that here on the screen. See what the news is from Linux Mint today. So welcome to the Linux question and answer hour, where we answer your questions about using Linux for audio and video production, but we also will be more than happy to answer other questions for you. Okay, let's see here. Hope you all are having a good day. It's a beautiful day here in Kingsport, Tennessee. Earlier, we had a flawlessly beautiful deep blue sky. I went out and shot a quick video before the afternoon program here, and I will upload it as soon as here we go. Let me go ahead and share this screen for you. Here we go. Oops. Okay, I think I need to close something there. I'll be right with you. Please be patient, and we'll get you right here on the Linux Mint website. See the latest here, because I've got so many windows open here. That's kind of the issue. Don't worry about that. Here we go. Got it. So here's the latest. And the nickname is going to be GG, and that is also the title of a movie that won an Academy Award for Best Picture, I think, in 1958. It was a musical. For those who are into filmography, which I am. Okay, so there's the latest. How about that? Okay. And for myself, I won't be using GG. I'm still on Linux Mint 22.0. Okay, we've got a couple folks out there. If you have any questions, jump on in. Let's get the lighting up to par. There we go. I knew there was something wrong. I didn't get that much of a tan today. I look like a red lobster. Okay, so come on in. Don't be shy. The water is just fine. So while we're waiting for the show to get kicked off here, if anybody wants to jump in and tell me how the weather is where you're at, what's going on with you, that would be fine. We're not going to be super restrictive here. Hey, okay, you're waiting for the final. It should be finalized in 3 weeks. I don't expect any big delays on that one. So for the folks out there who are new, who just happen to drop in by this stream, it's a live stream. We're ready to answer your questions about using Linux for audio, music, and video production. And whether you're troubleshooting, exploring creative workflows, or diving into open source tools, this is your place to learn and connect. And also, if you're just curious about Linux and need some friendly advice and answers to all your questions, and if we can't answer a question right here live, we'll give an answer to your question the very next week. We're definitely going to do that. No stonewalling here, no BSing. No experience required. So come on in. Let's basically, the people who stop by every week and ask the questions, you're the ones that drive this YouTube live. So even if you're not into audio video production and you have questions about Linux, by the way, speaking of Linux, I have a USB sketchpad from Wacom. It's arriving here tomorrow that will allow me to do some drawings. Hello, Jerry. Thank you for asking the question. Jerry has a question. What distro do you recommend starting out with? I recommend Linux Mint. And I have a question for you, Jerry. Have you ever installed an operating system before? Of course, somebody's sending a message right in the middle of the live. Jerry, have you ever installed an operating system on a computer before? Well, the answer to your question is Linux Mint. Oh, okay, great. Then then you know how to do it off the USB drive. And by the way, I can definitely recommend this tool that has an odd name is the best one to use, the USB tool. And I've got to find it here because I keep forgetting the name. It's a very unusual name. It's called Ventoy. That's Victor Echo November Tango Oscar Yankee. Ventoy. That's the best. That's the best. That's the best tool to use. Great. So what distribution are you using right now? Are you still under Windows? Okay. I guess we have some lag there on the system today. Well, I see we have 3 folks. You're on Mint right now, where you're just where you should be. I've been using Linux for 9 years. I've tried all the distros, trust. I've tried everything from Anti-X, which is for like old systems like a 486, a Pentium 3, and things like that. Okay, but you're looking to move because Windows 10, of course, Windows 10 support is ending. So I take it you have some Windows programs that won't run under Mint. Would that be your next question, your segue to another question? I don't want to sit here and not say anything, but if you're new, if you just happen to discover this live here, YouTube live, it's about Linux, and here to answer any questions that you have, especially if you want to use Linux for audio and video production. Okay, but you're right. Well, Jerry, just so I can help you better, what are, there's this word that we used to use in information technology. It's called pain points. Pain points, all right? So what are the programs that that you still have to run? Is it games or is it productivity like PowerPoint, Visio? If you could just list a couple of the main programs that you still need to use that won't operate, that you haven't been able to operate under Mint, that would help. I mean, here to answer your questions. There's always a few, especially if you operate in the world of Adobe. That's a real problem moving to Linux. Because Adobe has the strongest anti-piracy of all the programs out there. They do everything because Adobe products are overpriced and they're the most pirated software out there. Okay, you're a teacher in Virginia. Hey, I'm over here in Northeast Tennessee. You know, I can walk to the Virginia state line. It's just 2 miles from here. Yeah, I go over to Virginia, over to, let's see, over into, I guess it'd be called Southeast Virginia, Southwest Virginia, to do videography. There's so many beautiful places over there that are untouched, that are beautiful. Because as you may or may not know, Scott County is the poorest county in Virginia. There's no jobs over there. So there's no new housing or anything to disturb the land. It's really beautiful. It's very nice. We have the same thing here in Tennessee in Hawkins County. Hawkins County, there's a lot of places in Hawkins County that are untouched by man. Hey, hello there. Good to have you join us there. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Okay, that's great. That's great, Jerry. Well, Jerry, stick around and I can answer any other questions you have, but maybe just listen, see what's going on. So the zebra there, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name there. Alway Exba. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give you an answer right now. Tell me how low end those PCs are. And that would help give me, tell me just the processor is like a Pentium 3. Is it, how much memory you have, like 2 megabytes of memory. And while you're doing that, I'm going to get you an answer as to what I would use. Yeah. We're all about getting the answers here. Okay. You pop back in here to the screen. Wow. You mean an Intel i3 with 4 megabytes of RAM? Because I used to have one of those to run Windows XP on. Boy, that was a tough fit, though. Yeah. IRC is still popular. A lot of Linux people are on internet relay chat because there's no spamming, there's no advertising. It's just a text-based chat, but you can copy and paste a link to like a website and things like that. Okay, well, I'm not sure how to pronounce your nick there. I'll just pronounce it always 7. I've got your answer. I'm going to put it up here on the screen for you. Hopefully without causing some kind of a weird echo. Let me see if I can click over fast enough. Here we go. There's your answer. It's called anti-X. Yeah. Anti-X is a fast, lightweight. It's suitable for old computers. The goal of NIX is to provide a light but fully functional, and it is. I've tried it. Ranging from 256 megabyte old P3 systems and to the latest powerful boxes, and that's true. I've used it there. Now, there are other ones out there called Puppy Linux and other ones, but again, this is what I would recommend. Anti-X. How about that? Okay. But what about Arch? Well, let me ask you a question there. If you want to run Linux on an old computer, Arch is really for people who need a cutting edge distro. Just so you know, with the most recent hardware and peripherals. Okay. So Arch really wouldn't be suitable for that particular purpose, because Arch is really for advanced users, because it presents its own grab bag of problems. That's why the NIX is based on Debian. So tell me more about why you would want to run Arch on a Pentium 3. I mean, when everything is given to you in NIX. What do you think about that, Marks? Hey, hello, Hawkeye. It's great that you could join us this afternoon. Well, actually, NIX is very beautiful on its own. That's why I recommended it to you. The reason why I recommended an NIX over Puppy Linux and some of the others is because out of the box, it looks beautiful. It has a very nice user presentation right out of the box. Oh, you said an Intel i3 processor. What generation? I thought you meant a P3. Thank you for correcting me there, Mark. Sometimes I get out of my lane and I need a little bumper. Remember the old bumper cars at the carnivals? God, those were fun. Oh, okay. Well, a lot of the Linux will run just fine with that. When you said gigabytes of memory, 4 gigabytes of memory, heck, the fact is Linux Mint Debian Edition 6 will do a beautiful job on that system. It sure will. That's right. XFCE. Okay, then I would drop down and give NIX a try. I sure would. Well, Hawkeye, thank you for dropping in. Please, welcome. Great you could join us. Do you have any questions for us today? And feel free, always 7, to ask questions about other things too. We're not just limited to just 1 or 2 questions about Linux for an old computer. You can ask any Linux related question. Thank you everybody for showing up and the thumbs up. It's very encouraging. This is only the 4th episode, and last week didn't go too well because getting in the studio there was too hyper technical about synthesizers and music equipment. You know, another great source, everybody, is this website called Distro, Distro. Let me just type it in here, okay? That is a great website to learn about other distros and to get information like what architecture, Debian, Arch, um, how long it's been around, reviews about it. There are lots of user reviews. Yeah, I would take a look at DistroWatch too. If you're looking for an Arch-based lightweight distro, you will find it on DistroWatch. That is a go-to place for information about distributions. Thank you, everybody, for dropping in today. Would love to answer your questions about Linux. I never have. See, the truth of the matter is, and you know, I will never sit here and make stuff up. That's not my game. I have tested Arch based distributions. I'm particularly interested in uh, Fedora, KDE, okay? But I have never really spent like weeks or months or years experimenting or testing Arch-based distros. Actually, I've spent a lot of time testing System 76 now with its new desktop, Cosmic. I've been testing that for 2 years. Okay, it's been on that computer for 2 years because it's still in testing. All right. So I have to be honest to say I've not spent much hands-on time with Arch-based distributions, but I have. Matter of fact, next week I am going to install a Fedora workstation, KDE, on the test workstation, which is in the room next to me there. Well, Hawkeye, what's been going on with you? Give us the goods, man. How's your day going? The weather here in Kingsport was stunning earlier today. It's a little warm right now. It's 83, which is going to be our high. It started out this morning a beautiful 58, crystal clear blue skies. I actually went out and filmed a video before the program here. And I'll be uploading that video later today. The Calm Between Two Mountains is the name of the new video in 4K. There's probably not. That's an interesting question. There might be a file somewhere, but I don't know of it. You know, you can probably look in the APT history. That's Alpha Papa Tango. That might tell you. That'd probably tell you right there, the APT history. There's also a transaction file, but that really wouldn't help you. How about that? Got an answer. Any other questions? Great to have some new folks drop in here today. We've got 7 folks out there. There have to be some more curious folks. Oh yeah, you'd love anti-X on that platform because it's a lot like Linux Mint, the desktop. And man, that would make it go fast. You know, you can tell I'm high on anti-X. I gave some information about it here. Let me pop open the screen again so we can take a look. Let's pop over there in a hurry. And you can look at the screens. Like I'm bringing this down here, you can look at the screenshots. I mean, for a little bitty footprint distro, it's got some good chops. Look, you've got two different, you can switch between your desktops there. All that's built in. Look up there, you've got your information about your resources, so you can see what the heck is going on, how close you are. Yeah. But you know, you don't have to take my word for it. You can just load it on a USB, the ISO, and then you can boot to it and see what you think. And if you don't like that one, then you can go up to scale. You can try other ones there on DistroWatch. Yeah. So that's the beauty of Linux. You can try before you install. Yeah. Well, Marks, what about some other lightweight ones that you might know of any? Because I don't live in a lightweight world. I tend to not test. There's another one called Mini OS. Okay. I know some people have tried that. There's another one here. I don't think it's in development anymore. Yeah, there was one called Sparky. All right. Well, I guess to answer your question there, Hawkeye, let's go back and take a look again here. Anti-X. Usually they'll give you the storage requirements. Yeah, I'm just looking here. You know, you can always go to their website and see what they've got to say. Like here, it should give you some more information. Oh, there's your theming. There you go. Somebody asked about rising. Well, there you go. There's some theming information right there. Okay, there's some information. It says here at the moment. Okay, and then exactly give there's a form and documents, quick tips. Okay, a live system, you're going to log in as demo. It's not really giving me the information about how much space it takes, but it certainly can't be more than, okay, installation to a hard drive requires a minimum, okay, of 7 gigabytes hard drive space. Yeah. Okay, well, somehow it did not share the screen. Okay, I guess it kicked out. So the question is, have you installed ProMox? No, I never have. I never have. I used to be a certified distro hopper like a bunny rabbit. I'd hop from one distro to another, but actually, because nowadays I'm busy using Linux for audio and video production the last couple of years, I don't spend as much time hopping around anymore as I used to. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was disappointing because I went to their web page, but somehow the screen kicked out on me. Yeah, see, I got that information here from the NIX page. Yeah. Yep, and they got some information there about configuration and theming. Very interesting. Okay, now we got it. Okay. Anytime, Hawkeye, anytime. Well, now that some folks have had a glimpse as to how this show operates, come on in. I see we have 5 folks out there. If you have any questions, we're about 30 minutes into here. I'd like to keep it to about an hour to hour 25, hour 30 at the most, because we're not going to show cats and bedroom furniture and things like that here. We're just going to try to wrap this thing up in an hour. Yeah, there's a way to center that dock in Linux Mint there, Hawkeye. I think it's a program called Docker, D-O, Docker, and I think you can find that in the, let's see, let me go right over here and look for it for you. Let's do this. What I want to do is to help people learn how to find answers. So let's do this. Okay, that's not what I want to do. So let's go back to Linux Mint, the main web page, and Cinnamon Spices, and they've got themes, applets, desklets, actions, and extensions. So that could be where it is. Let's do a search for Docker. Okay, it's not showing. Let's do this. Somebody said a couple of weeks ago, I cannot type, about a Docker control. No, that's a Docker container. That's not it. Okay, themes. I guess we can try doc. Okay, that's kind of old. It's about a year ago, but it's called Simple Doc. Okay. Brownser, that's a pretty reputable programmer. The NFL panic meter that let's try this. No. Let's check this one. Nope. No joy there. Okay, well, we found one possibility. Go back. When you say that to center the dock in Linux Mint, you're talking about the start, where the start menu and everything is, and the programs. In other words, you want it to look like GNOME. Why? Okay, you said somebody in IRC was installing a Docker. Okay. Well, Marks, if you have a link to that, could you copy and paste it here in the chat window? Pardon me. Pardon me on that. You know, it's funny because everybody's going, look, Windows 11, Windows 12, you've got the Macintosh, and then you've got GNOME. Everybody's going to that thing in the center. And I just laugh. And actually, KDE has a function too where you can easily do that. Uh, but okay. Yeah, can you find us that link there, Marks? But the name of it was Docker. Let me do a search here real quick. Yeah, there's a way to do it. It's kind of painful. Okay, now am I going to be able to paste this? Okay, something has gone wrong here. Something went sideways on me and I don't know what happened. I'll just have to try it again. It's still not. Oh, apparently there's a limit. What is going on here? Yeah, apparently there's a limit as to how much text I can paste in here. That was the problem. I kept hitting the enter key and nothing was happening. There was, yeah, there's a way you can do it manually. It's kind of painful. The problem is there's no way to like undo it unless you reset your entire Cinnamon. I don't think there's a way to reset that one feature. You have to reset your entire Cinnamon desktop. Do you know what you can do? You can boot to a live USB and you can keep testing it in the live USB. And if you blow that up, you just reboot, you try again until you get it down, and then you try it on your system that's installed on your hard drive. Okay? All right, we would love to answer some more questions here. We're 38 minutes in, but I think it started a few minutes early today. Of course, when it does the replay, everybody can see what was asked. Okay, we lost a lot of people. We were up to 7 there, now down to a couple. Is anybody here using Linux for audio and visual production? Audio, video work of any kind, art, like drawing, drafting, CAD, anything like that? Any familiar animals? Well, Marks, when I send that new computer, you're going to have to do some things with it other than internet chat. And that computer is coming all the way over here from Washington State, so it won't even be here until early next week. And then I've got to test it and do some run it through its paces, do some torture testing, make sure the memory is okay and everything. Okay. And only after it passes all the tests. And of course, that includes testing and loading several different distros on it, including Arch-based distros, by the way. Make sure that there are no issues, then I'll send it out. Yeah. All right. Well, we've got a couple concurrent folks in here. Well, now it depends. See, you're in woodworking, so CAD would work fine for you, but not for me. Because the extent of my woodworking is that a wood chassis in the other room for the sound equipment. Okay. That's the extent. I bought all these tools. I bought this portable workbench. I bought these I can't remember the name of the brand. You know, you're welcome, Hawkeye, and feel free to ask some more questions. Marks, what's that DeWalt? I bought these expensive DeWalt jigsaw, and I bought all these clamps and okay, and I bought all these measures, and I bought this huge, the biggest bag, the biggest tool bag that Home Depot sold. Huge, it's like 2 feet. I bought all these bits and drills and countersinks. only, and then my knees went bad, and I only made one project with it. I got a bag full of hundreds of dollars full of tools that just sitting in the bottom of a closet. Because it's hard to do that stuff when you have 2 bad knees. It really is. Okay. Hey, it's great. We've got 5 people. Oh, now a couple went away. People, I guess, just drop in just to see. It's called like drop-in hockey. You're not on a team. You just drop in and play with a bunch of strangers, and then you go home. That's what drop-in hockey is. It's a scrimmage. We could talk a little bit about sports if people want to. Obviously, I know a lot about ice hockey. I played it for over 30 years, but that's not why my knees went bad. My knees went bad because of cycling 40 miles a day and having a seat too low. Oh, they don't call it a seat. Every sport has specialized naming system. The seat in a bicycle is called a saddle, for crying out loud. And you're a cyclist, not a biker is a person who rides a motorbike. Okay, a cyclist is a person who rides a bicycle. Nomenclature, that's the word every sport has its own particular nomenclature, and like ham radio does, and all these hobbies. They all call the same thing. It goes by a different name. A saddle, for crying out loud. So I assume a lot of people just drop in to see what's going on here, and then they leave. They just take a peek. Okay, it's time for some more questions. Let's make the best use of this 1.5 hour a week thingy dingy. Any other questions here? Come on in, and the water's just fine. Well, Marks, we've got a heat wave coming down here tomorrow. I think tomorrow's going to be the hottest day of September, and then from then on down, it's downhill back to fall weather. Actually, I was wrong. Saturday, uncommonly warm, because the last 2 weeks have been absolute heaven here in terms of the weather. Yeah, and then after Saturday, it all falls into place. Beautiful fall weather, just the way I like it. I was going to look up the Weather Channel here and see what's going on with the weather, what the 10-day trend is. Yeah. Okay. Gosh, I think that tool bag alone was $24. Yeah. $1 per inch. Okay, welcome to those who just joined. This is the Linux question and answer hour. Any questions you have about Linux, in particular for audio and video production, please feel free to ask. Okay, everybody, Hawkeye's got a question here. If you don't mind, how old are you? Wow. You just can't get away from ageism. Well, actually, to answer your question, I'm 66 years old. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what the wow is for. Yeah, and the reason this missing tooth here is because it got knocked out with a hammer, and a lot of the bone, the upper bone, all the way up to the palate, the bottom of the palate. And the thing is, it would require extensive bone reconstruction surgery. The other option is to have a bridge made. And the third option is just to have all the top teeth removed and have a dental implant done. Yeah. Well, I do try to stay active. I've had some health issues the last 3 years. After COVID, I got long-term COVID, which caused an autoimmune response in my body to dissolve the remaining cartilage in both knees. And then I had a heart issue here last September, which was fixed here in April, but I was on this terrible life-saving heart regulation drug. It's a long story. What do I think about Ubuntu? I've never used it. I've never used that one. I'll tell you, if you like KDE, it's very hard to beat Ubuntu's desktop of KDE. It's really good. Now, the thing is, they're not going to give you the leading edge Plasma 6.16 desktop. It's going to be the old one, the 5.x, but it's very stable. The problem I've run into with the latest Plasma 6.x release is as soon as you start changing things, the whole idea of Plasma is configuration. It's got, but when you start changing things, it becomes unstable. Well, it kind of defeats the whole purpose, okay, of having an infinitely configurable desktop if you start configuring things and then it becomes less stable. Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, if you're interested in a rock solid release, okay, of KDE, it's called Ubuntu, and it's fantastic. I can't recommend that highly. If you want a long-term stability, you don't want cutting edge, okay, but you want something that's stable for everyday work. And see, we're talking about everyday work here. Remember, we talk about using Linux for audio and video production. There it is. That's highly recommended, Ubuntu. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Come on in. The water's fine, and here to answer your questions today. This is the Linux question and answer hour. Hey, hello, Enio, welcome. First time here. I can't type either. Join the club. You know, I've been working on computers for 55 years, but I still can't type on a keyboard very well because I have a dexterity problem with my fingers, but I do the best I can. You know, even in high school, I took typing class, and here I was, you know, remember, I was in high school in the 1970s. So here I am in this entire classroom. It's like it's all females, and there's like 3 boys. Everybody else is girls. I'm in this typing class because I was trying to do everything I could to improve my typing skills. So when it came to electives in high school, you get to choose from a little limited list. It's not like now where you have 20 electives. Okay. And I chose typing and wood shop and metal shop and all that stuff. So great to have you with us, Enio. Have you got any questions today about using Linux for audio, visual production, or just questions? Okay. Well, now to be perfectly honest, I haven't heard of that distro. Well, I've heard people talk about it actually, but I've never tried it. I've never seen it with my own eyes and touched it with my own keyboard. One of the easiest ones to learn from is Linux Mint. Linux Mint. And that's incredibly easy. Here, let me bring up their web page for you just to take a looky. Let's see here. Yeah, here's the Linux Mint home page. And when they say it's friendly because it's so familiar. It's familiar to you if you're coming from the Windows background. Now, if you're coming from a Mac, you might prefer, the thing with Arch is, I always tell people this, and I want to be honest. I don't want to make stuff up. And you can confirm it, Marks, my comment. Marks has been in Linux for what, 20 years? Yeah, the thing about Archbase is it's really for advanced users. The A stands for advanced because sooner or later you're going to run into problems with Arch. It generally occurs during some kind of an update where things go sideways and you have to get under the hood and fix it. And that's a known issue with Arch. Arch is fun until it breaks. Okay. And there was a German consortium of software developers, and they developed a desktop for Arch called Manjaro. And Manjaro was extremely successful for a few years. And then there was a falling out between some of the developers in Manjaro. And then it kind of fell by the wayside. Well, thank you, Sheila. Yeah, it's a strange name for that distro, but Manjaro was moving up. They were like number 3, and for a while they were number 1 on Distro Watch because it allowed a beginner to use Arch. They fixed a lot of the problems. Okay. The other thing, I'm not telling people not to use Arch. If you want to use Arch, an excellent one, especially if you're coming from the Mac background and you want that familiar Mac interface, is Fedora Workstation. Fedora, like the hat. Fedora Workstation. By default, it's known, but you can also install the KDE Workstation. Well, thanks, Sheila. I'm glad you could join us today. Do you have any questions about Linux? Okay, so I know there was a FedEx truck here earlier today. I could hear it. But Enio, back to your question. On how to install a hard drive or how to install on a hard drive. Well, Endeavor is another excellent way. Yeah, most everything in Linux is free, unlike Waterworld. Because in Waterworld, there's nothing is free in Waterworld. Yeah. Well, just like that, remember, Sheila, and you installed that Office program? Well, in Linux, everything is like that. If you need a drafting program or you need video editing software, if you need sketch software to do sketches, like illustrations for a children's book, you install that. You just install it from a software manager, just a few mouse clicks and you're in. Okay. Well, thank you, Ramon, for your answer. You gave a very excellent answer. Endeavor is the best way to get started in Arch, and also Fedora. I would recommend Fedora. That's right. There's LibreOffice, but there's a whole universe of free and open source software out there. It's called FOSS. Free and open source software out there. There's a whole universe. Well, tomorrow that Sketchpad is supposed to come, and I can't wait to use it with my paint. Yeah. Heck, you'll probably like it too. And you can do your own illustrations for that children's book. You could do it all. What is a good option to use instead of Adobe Premiere? Boy, that is a loaded question. What exactly are you using Adobe Premiere to do? Is it primarily video editing? Let's see here. Okay. I'm right there. I have an answer for you. We don't want to let people go away empty-handed here. Okay, because this is what I do myself. I do video editing, but if you want the top one, you want the big daddy, the top dog, there is a way to install DaVinci on Linux, primarily. Let me, so I don't kick myself out of my own screen here, let me bring that up. Just a moment, I'm working on that. Anybody else that just joined, please hang tight. We'll be right with you here with some questions and answers. I'm trying to get an answer here and hear about the video. Okay. Okay. Now that is one source. If that information is outdated, okay, on how to install DaVinci Resolve on Linux, there are other resources out there. You just type in your web browser how to install DaVinci on Linux, and you'll get several different answers. Always look for the most recent one, because some of these instructions are a couple years old. And the problem is, with some of these instructions that are a couple years old, there's a file you have to change. after you install it, but before you actually run DaVinci, you've got to replace a file that causes it to crash. Just a heads up on that. It's one file, it's a binary, and you just grab it from somewhere and you just copy it over, and it fixes that problem. Okay, so Ramon answers, in the end, do you think that NixOS would be friendlier and maybe an Arch alternative? Well, I'll tell you, it's hard to beat Endeavor, and it's hard to beat Fedora Workstation. Now, if anybody else has any thoughts on that, please feel free to mention it here in the chat. There are no monopolies here on the answers. Oh yeah, Blender is beautiful. Right. And if that one's outdated, there are many others out there. And just remember, there's that one file that you need to watch out for, because when you start working, it will crash, and it will keep crashing. You wonder, what did I do wrong? Well, because there's one file that causes a conflict. Okay. And you have to replace that one file. Well, great. We have 8 concurrent watchers in here. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Linux question and answer hour, where all questions are answered about Linux, but primarily concerning using Linux for audio and video production. However, available to answer any questions you have about Linux. And if we can't get the answer right now here live, we'll have the answer for you next week. Great. Well, thank you for joining us today, Enio. Okay, we've got 7 concurrent watchers. Come on in, the water's just fine. Join us. It's a judgment-free zone here. Now, the only problem with this tool, it's the Linux equivalent of Photoshop. It's called GIMP. And that's an acronym, I think, for New Image Manipulation Program, GIMP. The problem is that in order to avoid lawsuits from Adobe, the interface can't work like Photoshop. So even though it does a lot of the Photoshop things, it doesn't do it in the familiar Photoshop way to avoid the lawsuit issue. Now I see we have 11 concurrent watchers. Come on in, the water is just fine. Feel free to ask a question. Let's get this thing rocking. And I always tell people, this isn't my program, this is your program. The questions that people ask will help guide the future of this YouTube Live. So surely out of 11 folks, we've got some more questions. There are no silly questions. This is a judgment-free zone. Okay, if you plug in a new mic, so how do you plan to plug this mic in? If you're going to plug a mic into an existing USB audio interface that's already plugged into your Linux computer, that shouldn't be a problem. But you generally can't take, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, when you're looking at USB interfaces for Linux, you always want to look for this word, and let me get it for you. Okay, because we had a question here earlier on the very first show. All right. You always want to look for this phrase when you're looking at any kind of an audio interface for Linux. Okay, it's going to be MIDI or audio. There you go. When you see that word, it's generally going to be just fine under Linux. Okay, so we have a destruct. I'm new to Linux. Not only new, but not experienced. I need a stable disto for okay, yeah. So I have a few doubts. Debian versus Fedora, GNOME versus KDE. Well, that's right. Well, actually, Fedora is on Arch, but it's well managed. Okay, GNOME versus KDE. Well, I'll tell you what. If you like the Macintosh look and feel, you're going to be more at home with GNOME. Okay, but if you're insistent on the Windows look and feel, KDE, which stands for Cool Desktop Environment, okay, KDE or something called Cinnamon, which Linux Mint offers, that gives you the Windows familiarity. Okay, not really new but not experienced. Also, Destruct, the best tool for installing distros, the ISOs that you download, is going to be that tool, and I mentioned it here at the top, Ventoy. Let me type it in because it's got a strange name. You're going to find that out in Linux. Some of the programs in Linux have strange names. Ventoy. So even if you're on Windows, you can still go to the Ventoy website and download it. Okay, and then you install it on a blank USB flash drive. And then from there, you can copy over the ISOs. Even if you're in Windows, you can do it. Okay, Ventoy. And let me go to their website here real quick. I'll show you their website. So hang in there if we've got some more questions. Give us just a few minutes to catch up here. All right. I want to show people, but I have so many shortcuts here. It's crazy. And they keep getting out of hand. Okay, just a moment here. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you have a tool to do this with or not. Okay, well, that's an interesting answer. Yeah, this is that tool that I mentioned, Ventoy. There it is. Yep. There's plenty of info about it. Well, Ventoy is the best. I've tried some of the others, Etcher, Fedora Media Writer. With Ventoy, you can even install Windows ISO off of it, which a lot of the other ones won't do. Because Windows ISO is over 4 gigabytes in size, so you have to have multiple formatted partitions in order to do that. You can always tell people if you're gonna travel first class, and Ventoy is a first class tool. Yeah. So Hawkeye 48 asks, what browser do I use? I use two. My primary daily driver browser is Firefox. That's what I use 95% of the time, but I also have Microsoft Edge installed. And the reason why, I have a couple websites that will not allow me to log in, okay, with Firefox. Like my Medicare Advantage will not allow me to use Firefox to log in. And the same thing now, Facebook, you have to have a Chrome-based browser if you want to do a video chat on Facebook. So I don't use Edge every day, but I use it when I need it. It's lightning fast. I can't believe Microsoft would write a piece of software for Linux that works so well. My gosh, it's blazing. Okay, we've got 12:13. Welcome to the Linux question and answer hour. Open forum, ask any questions you'd like. the water's just fine. Come on in. Don't be shy. If you just want to talk about the weather, if you want to talk about Linux and how you can use Linux for audio and video production, that's what this is really about. I don't know which one is closer to the Mac OS since you've never owned one. GNOME is the closest thing to the Mac OS. Out of the box. I mean, when I say out of the box experience, out of the box, OOB, out of the box experience without having to do anything to it, GNOME is going to be your closest. Yeah. And by the way, Fedora Workstation, their default is GNOME, but they also offer KDE. KDE is more like Windows. And thank you for the thumbs up, by the way, the folks who left one. Okay, reading back here. I answered the question. Exactly, it is so underrated. But the reason I don't use it every day, every hour, like I do Firefox, is, you know, we have feelings about Microsoft, and they're not happy ones. But we don't want to turn this into a political statement here. Everybody is welcome. And we have 14 concurrent watchers, so surely 1 out of 14 has another question. Come on in. This is a judgment-free zone. Man, I just love it when somebody makes a comment like that. To be honest, yeah, that is true. Oh, and by the way, I do use VS Code. There's, you know, I've tried the VS Codium and I've tried some of these other software for coding, but VS Code, as long as Microsoft will let me use it for free, I'll keep using it. Okay, we got a question from Financial Flow TV. How can I make my boot faster? Firmware seems to take 10 seconds. Okay, now that's a pretty loaded question, so let's break that question down. When you say firmware, that means from the time you turn the computer on to the time you see your first Linux boot screen, or where on some versions of Linux you'll be able to see what it's doing, or you're talking about the time that it actually spends in firmware. Because those are two different issues. And let me explain that. I'll show you here. What's that command there, Marks, where you can see what your boot time is and how long each module is taking the load? Oh, it's systemd analyze blame. That's what it is. Just a second. I think that's it. If I can type. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your help on that. We can help each other here. Come on. That's the beauty about Linux, is it has auto completion. Okay. I had an extra one there. I wonder why autocomplete wasn't working. Okay. So just so people can see here on the screen what it does, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here after I clear it, after I type the correct command. How did I ever make it in computing? I can't even type. Criminy. Okay. So let's just share it here with the group. What it looks like here. Okay, the command we're talking about. There we go. Got it up there on the screen. All right. Okay. Yeah, there's the command. And as you can see, it's pretty fast system here. Yeah. So SF trim, that runs once a week, but that's the slowest thing. So what you're saying there is it hangs in firmware for 10 seconds. Which I can't even see it here, how long it's hanging in this one. Gee whiz, there's a lot going on there. Yeah, it shouldn't be spending 10 seconds in your firmware. Is that your question there, Financial Flow TV? But I guess my question is, on your computer where you say 10 seconds, what is it spending the most time on? Because see, what mine is spending the most time on is waiting for my internet to come up. Oh my goodness gracious, isn't that something? Linux is great. Linux can tell you everything you need to know. Let's go ahead and stop sharing this. That's an interesting observation, why it boots faster. Well, I wish I could just shoot out an answer to you right away. Bang, we got it. But I'm just not familiar with your hardware. And when you said 10 seconds in firmware, it shouldn't be taking that long. Have you enabled fast boot on your system? Now, everybody says in Linux, don't turn on Windows fast boot. Everybody says don't do that, but I do that. I've never had an issue. I don't want to see that BIOS screen, the logo. I want it to boot right away. Okay. I just want it to zip right into starting up Linux. I don't want to see beeps and boops, and I don't want to see how much memory I've got. I just want it to bam, boot, blow right past that BIOS start and get busy. Okay. So in Linux Mint, you can change that. It's set to 0. If Linux Mint is the only distro, the only operating system installed on your system, because Linux Mint it borrows Ubuntu's installer. It goes out there and it looks to see what other operating systems are out there on your drives. And if it doesn't find any, it puts a value of 0 in there, but you can change that yourself. You can change it. And let me show how that's done, if you care to know. Oh, that's a very good one there. That's a pretty recent one. So you've got Plasma 6 on there. How do you like it? How do you like it? Is it treating you okay? Are you having fun with it? All right. I'm looking for that here in my code. because it's easier for me to copy and paste out of this here, because I do the very same thing. Okay. I'm going to try to do this without blowing up the chat. Give me just a minute. While I'm doing this, preparing this file here, does anybody else have any questions? I know we have quite a few concurrent watchers out there. Okay, so what it is apparently there's a limitation on how many lines of text I can copy in the window, but I'm going to copy this here. Okay. Let's see if it all goes. Yeah, it made it. So what that is doing is first you're going to copy, you're going to back that up. Okay. Well, it's still not working right because it strung all that together. Let me do this. Let me just copy and paste it one line at a time. Okay. So disregard that. Okay, that's the first command. So what you're doing, you're backing it up. Okay, you're saving the original file to a different file name. Okay. Then you're going to change the timeout here. Okay, so it's not going to be hidden anymore. You're going to unhide it. Okay. Then you're going to change the timeout to 10 seconds from 0 to 10. Okay. And then you're going to do this. Okay. Thing is, you have to be, yeah, that should do it. Yeah, because what Linux Mint does by default, they hide the menu and they set the timeout to 0. Okay. So that should do it. I see we have 12 concurrent watchers. Everybody don't be shy. This is for you. If you have any questions about Linux or primarily using Linux for audio, video production, just come on in and ask a question. The water's fine. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. Everybody's welcome. This is a judgment-free zone. So we're going to have to find a more effective way for me to get multiple lines of code answered here other than copy and pasting through this little rinky-dinky chat thing, which is really for people to send emojis through to each other. It's not intended for technical use. I've never heard about the Winboat app. Can anybody here answer that question? What is the Winboat app? And since Destruct has typed it in here, I don't have to type it. Gosh, we've got 11 concurrent watchers. Certainly somebody wants to come forward. The sys module configs. are you on an SSD or a hard drive on that laptop? That's a long time. You know, it just could be your hardware for some reason. Like you said, you notice the difference when the external power is plugged in and the battery is charging. It could be that there's a clock speed issue or there's some issue somewhere in that particular laptop when it does not have external power where it operates differently to save on battery consumption. Okay, so Ramon has a question here. I'm using Arch to read and work after 10 years of teaching. I've started to learn C++. Any advice? Well, let me just ask you, Ramon, when people ask me that they want to do something with software, with computers, I ask, what's your objective? What do you want to do with C++? Why do you want to learn it? Why not Python? Yeah, that's a little bit on the slow side. How old is that laptop? So before I can answer Ramon's question, at 10 years of teaching, what are you teaching? Are you teaching IT or information technology or programming? And then you said, I started to learn C++. Any advice? Well, I don't want us to be idle here without saying anything. We have 14 concurrent watchers now. If there's anybody who has a question, come on in. Well, thank you, Roger, but I mainly wanted to ask why Ramon wants to learn C++ versus Python or basically any programming language. What's your end game? Well, anyway, Roger's given a very valuable piece of advice, and actually that's what people do with Python is, for example, they'll write some disk management software or an array of disks, um, like a plugin utility to manage yeah, for disk management. Hey, hello, Raphael, welcome. And thank you for stopping by today and asking a question. Raphael asked, well, I started learning Bash to get the concepts of scripting, which, by the way, that is an excellent route to go. And that's what I did. I started scripting in Linux with Bash. But I found a need to learn Python to build my consumer report project. Well, you can use both of those together. Python is an excellent tool to do that with. And that's why I recommended Python over C++, because C++ is a lower level language and you have to manage the memory and do all that. That's a lot of work. And that's why I asked, what's your end game? Because people who are fluent in C++ are desirable employees. And so, Yeah, especially if you can write drivers and things like that. But if you just want to do some simple reports, it's the no systems OS and the command line like my own house. Okay. Well, C++ will definitely do that for you. Back when I was doing some programming, we used something called assembly language, and it just compiled the ASM text file into a COM file, and it executed like very quickly. But now there are so many interpretive languages out there that are not low-level languages. Okay, automate the boring stuff with Python, and that's what that. And of course, Roger said there. Raphael said that I started learning, and I need to learn Python right, because you need Python to do some complicated mathematic columns and things like that, and yeah, to do some complicated things in math, which you'd need for a consumer report to go through a lot of data and tables. That's where Python comes in handy, because you can only do so much in Bash. Well, in today's market, Python, but the real answer, the honest answer to somebody who has been around in computing long enough to see the beginning of the end of humans actually programming, the answer is none of the above. Yeah, what's more valuable to learn for a job in today's market? Well, do you already have a job in IT? If you already have a job in IT, Python. But if you're looking for a job in IT down the road, the answer is none of the above. Yeah, because those are the first jobs that are going to be gone, are the entry level jobs. Those are going away right now. Just ask anybody who has a degree in IT right now who's looking for work. Yeah. Okay, so we've got 11 concurrent watchers. We're an hour 32 in, but we started a few minutes early just to get things warmed up here. I just joke, I laugh because I'm a big Battlestar Galactica fan, and I chuckled when they said, let's warm up the FTLs. What the heck? I never knew a faster than light engine needed to be warmed up. But anyway, well, Financial Flow TV asks a question. So is it true that AI is going to replace entry level? It already is replacing entry level programmers. Yeah. Well, right. And that, follow your passion, no matter what it is you're doing in life, whether you're looking for a hobby or a job or a career, follow your passion. Don't let other people tell you what to do. And don't ever let people tell you what you can't do. Okay. How about that? Those are the two most valuable pieces of information I have given today in today's live. Don't let anybody else decide for you what you want to do, and don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. Hello, Jess. It's very kind of you to stay in. I want everybody to know Jess is on the other side of the planet, and it is 3:59 a.m. his time. And thank you so much, Jess, for stopping in to say hello. And get some sleep, my friend. And good luck to you. Thank you so much. I'll tell you, Destruct, you've given some very, very helpful pointers, and I appreciate that. Yeah, it's good for learning about logic. Java is good for IT software development. A lot of big companies use Java front ends on all their, right. Java is great for front ends on websites, and it's an intermediary to connect it with large databases. Right. Yeah, that's very good. And yeah, we didn't even talk about Java, but Java is very popular with the Fortune 500 companies. They eat that up like pudding. Okay, well, thank you, Enio, for dropping in with us today. I probably am pronouncing your name the wrong way. Is it San Enio or Enio San? Thank you so much. Please come back. Thank you for your kind wishes. Right. But actually it's another language. It's between SQL and the front end, the giant databases, and companies still use SQL because they're used to it. A lot of the newer companies like Facebook, they all use these huge server farms with Hadoop, which is all running on Linux. But some of the old line big companies that have large databases like General Motors and all those people, they're still all on SQL. Let's just make sure we got it right, which is owned by Oracle. Okay, which also owns Java or Oracle. I used to work for HP, so we always used to joke and call it Oracle. Okay, but Oracle's an interesting company. That's why they're so rich, because they not only have the SQL, but they also own Java. All right. So does anybody have that question? Somebody asked a question, what is DEV capital OPS? I've seen that term, but DevOps. Oh, scripting is very powerful. That is a great answer. Thank you there, Roger. DevOps is an operations specialist that has developer abilities. That's a powerful combination. That would be like somebody who maintains and operates large SQL databases, that who also has a role as a developer. And like I said, there are large companies out there that still have tons of data in SQL databases, SQL. Remember, SQL is an Oracle product. Oracle sells their version of SQL, which is one of the most popular with Fortune 500 companies. Even though it was an IBM product originally developed by IBM. Right, can configure apps, deploy them, and then while running in production. And that's a tough thing to be in, because, as most of you know, we're on the internet constantly. We've seen internet outages, AT&T. We've seen a lot of these giant companies go down for a day. Well, that's because a DevOps introduced some new code. Maybe there was an issue with it, and it brought the whole system, bring the whole company down, man, to a stop. The question we see a lot here is GNOME or KDE. It's all about personal. That's the beauty of Linux. Windows doesn't give you a choice. It's Windows. Okay. But with Linux, you have many different desktops. Okay, it's all about freedom of choice. It's whatever you want. You can try them on a, and that's the other beauty about Linux. You can try it on a USB drive. You just put the ISO over using a tool like Ventoy. You put the ISO on the USB drive. You put it in your computer. You hold down F10 while it's booting, or F9. You select the boot menu. You boot to Linux, and you can try all these distros without even installing them on your hard drive and destroying anything. You can test all these different desktops. It's pick and choose. It's a cornucopia. There are so many desktops out there. That's right. That's exactly right. Well, actually, to answer your question, is secure boot Windows a way to lock you from installing other OSs? Actually, no. Secure boot started with Windows 8. And the whole idea was it's not to allow a virus or a Trojan to write, okay, to your boot area. That's what it was originally designed for, to protect your boot area. In Windows 8, that's when it started. That's why they call it secure boot, because it's supposed to secure your boot. That's what it was originally designed for. Yeah, it started with Windows 8. Now, Windows 11 has a nasty feature where you have to have secure boot turned on. And the problem is getting NVIDIA drivers to work on a Linux partition on the same hard drive or the same computer system. You can have like Linux on one hard drive, you can have Windows 11 on another hard drive. But in order to install the NVIDIA drivers on the Windows drive on the same system, the system is the computer box, okay? Windows 11 forces you to turn that on, to leave that turned on. And that's a huge problem for NVIDIA drivers on Linux. Now, if you've got Linux and you've got not AMD, but you've got Intel drivers, that's not an issue, okay, because the drivers are built into the kernel, and the same thing with AMD. But if you have to bring the drivers into the kernel, like you do with NVIDIA, secure boot under Windows 11 is causing a huge problem with people who want to dual boot with Linux. So the question is, then why so many distros incompatible with it and so many games needs it disabled for them to work? Well, I've never had a system where I've turned secure boot on. I always turn, that's the first thing I do when I buy a new computer. I bring it in, I turn secure boot and all that stuff off, and then I get out with gparted and I blow away the Windows partition and I install Linux. So I've never had a problem with it. And when you said games need disabled, that's for the anti-cheat or whatever. See, I'm not a big gamer, but somebody here can answer that question. Well, because Microsoft doesn't care. Okay. All right. The short answer is Microsoft doesn't care unless you can't play their own games. You know, Microsoft bought a huge gaming company recently, but I'm sure all their games are coded to avoid some of those issues. Okay, so we have 10 concurrent watchers out there, does anybody else have a question? Come on in. The water's fine. It's a judgment-free zone. Ask any question you like about computing, about Linux. Just no religion or politics, and keep it safe for work, because some people here are at the workplace. They might be at a break, but they wouldn't want their boss to come by the cubicle and see something that shouldn't be seen. Well, Marks, how many years have you been running that laptop under Linux? Now, I've got a laptop that's been running under Linux and actually Windows for how many years now? For 8 years. Yeah. Eight years under Linux. Okay, I didn't quite understand Raphael's comment there. Maybe he could elaborate. I notice I can run OMA, but can't run OMA on Windows because I need the NADVA adapter. Well, the truth is battery life on a Linux laptop is shorter than with Windows. But actually Windows will make your battery die faster, because on a Windows laptop, it's never really fully turned off, ever. So on my Windows laptop, I always have to plug it in and charge it for a little bit before I actually turn it on, because sometimes that battery will be drained down to nothing. Because like I said, a Windows laptop never really 100% turns off. It's still draining just a tiny bit of energy. Yeah, that's a big difference between Windows and Linux, is after you've had Windows for a year or two and it's done a bunch of updates, it starts to slow down. But that generally doesn't happen with Linux. Linux is real good about something called housekeeping. And actually on this system here, I'd had Linux on it for almost a year, and I did a reinstall just simply because I had something that made my system the way I didn't want it to. So I just blew it all out and started over again. Because on this system here, I have a script to put everything back the way it was before the damage occurred. So anyway, we've got 8 concurrent folks out there watching. We're going to have to wrap it up here soon, folks. We've been on the air here for about an hour and 30, and we kind of like to keep it to an hour and 30, but we don't have to. We don't have to have a hard stop. We would like to see some more folks chime in here before the live is closed. Oh, thank you very much, Roger, for subscribing, and your contributions have been valuable today. And that's what this is really all about. It's about getting folks together, and we can trade information and help each other. Thank you very much. That's great. Today's just been a wonderful YouTube live, and hoping to build on this. And like I told people, we've got 9 folks out there this is your hour. I'm just here to facilitate. But how this 1 hour or 1 hour and a half or however long it's going to be goes, it's driven by the questions and the answers. See, that's the beauty of Linux is that unlike Windows, just so people know, why do people keep asking about Arch? Well, with Linux, there are two main branches of the tree, and then off of that tree or off each branch are like hundreds of smallers. Okay, you've got the Arch and Debian, and then from that you've got these subfamilies, and then you have the distros. And the truth is, the Linux map would be too big for me to put on this screen. It's so big, it takes like 8 pages to print it out. Okay, so if I tried to squeeze it down and show it to you on this screen, you wouldn't be able to see it. Okay. Now, I'm a fan of Debian, but that doesn't, like I said, I highly recommend if you want to try Arch, I recommend Endeavor, and I also recommend Fedora Workstation if you want to use the Arch-based Linux. See, with Windows and the Mac, it's just Windows. This is a whole different animal, folks. Look, going from Windows to Linux is like going from a dog or cat kennel to a zoo. Okay. All right. That's the difference. It's like a full zoo. And that's right. Oh, when I first tried Linux and saw all the different distros, and I spent days and weeks on different distros. It was an eye-opener. I wish I had gotten into Linux when I was working at HP, because I could have been on the test team, because they were actually using Linux scripts and everything to test a lot of their servers. And I said, oh man, if I knew then what I knew now, that would have really helped my career. Yeah, if you want rocks, I'll tell you what, if stability is your pursuit, it's hard to beat plain Debian. Debian runs for years. Yeah, it's hard to beat just vanilla Debian. Debian from Debian. Yeah. Well, we still have 10 concurrent watchers. Oh, 5, excuse me. Thank you for the likes. So before we consider closing this live, are there any more pertinent questions? See, now there's 7. I don't want to close this down when we've got 7 concurrent watchers. So if you've got a question about Linux, or you're just curious about it, even if you don't have a question, if you're just curious about it, come on, man, the water is fine. This is a judgment-free zone. And thank you so much, everyone, for the likes. That's greatly appreciated. It's good to know that the time here has been rewarded. And please subscribe to the channel so you'll get a weekly notification about the upcoming live. Well, the answer about Arch is Arch has a different philosophy. It's got a different target audience. Arch is for people who have the most recent hardware. They need the most cutting edge. They need a daily build. they need a rolling release. They need the latest hardware and software to go along with that. That's more the goal of Arch. Whereas Debian and Debian-based distributions, they have what's called long-term releases. They're behind the curve. They're a year or two behind, actually, depending on which one you're on. You can be a year or two behind with the kernel and the software and everything. But some people, again, it's about choice. Where do you want to be? Do you want to be on a system that never crashes? Do you want to be on a system that, that you run for weeks or months without rebooting? But if you want to tinker and see what the latest is, you've got a brand new 15 gen processor, and you have a graphics card that just can't run well under a Debian distribution, you're going to turn to Arch. Again, it's all about what do you want to do, what's your end game, and then you pick from there. Well, I wish I could give you an answer there, Flow TV. What can I do to make a career in cybersecurity? A more knowledgeable person in that field may be able to give you an answer, or we can answer that next week for you. But to be honest, I couldn't tell you. Okay, so destruct your question, and there is nothing in between. Well, thank you for being here, and please come back next week, same time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time Zone on Thursdays. So destruct asks a question, and there is nothing in between. You're talking about between Arch and Debian in terms of stability and your latest software and drivers. Is that in the kernel? Is that your question? Well, see, that was the beauty of Manjaro, because Manjaro gave you a more stable, more maintained kernel and a library of software. Yeah, but Manjaro had some personality issues between the developers. That Manjaro was headed that way, and that's why for a brief period of time Manjaro was the #1 distro on DistroWatch. And there are some other ones. I'm sure if you look around you can find some Arch-based distros that will give you more stability. It's not a hard and fast rule. Well, people seem to be keen on Endeavor. That's been mentioned several times here today. Another good way is to go into some of these chat rooms. Now, Discord has a huge, absolutely monstrous Linux Mint presence on Discord. Actually, I'm in there right now on Discord. You can always go in there and ask some people, and you'll get different opinions, and then you can try the different distros and see which one works best for you. There's quite a few Arch people there in the Linux Mint chat. So that's going to be the Linux Mint server in Discord. It's Linux Mint community. And there are some wise people in there, some knowledgeable people. The problem is getting through the emojis and the animated GIFs to get the answer. And they have several different support forums and chat rooms like technical, coding. I highly recommend that. Let me just show it to you real quick. just show that. I'm not afraid to steer people anywhere. I have no monopoly interest here. I just want to see that some people get some answers. Whoops. We got the old echo thing there going, and do not, there we go. So yeah, you can see what I'm talking about, cutting through the animated GIFs. There we go with another one. But there are some good places to hang out here. There are other chat rooms. See, I'm in the general, but there are so many different other ones there. Technical, creative. Yeah. So don't let that chase you off. Like I said, once you can cut through the stream of emojis and animated GIFs, you can get some information out of there. Actually, that's the largest collection of Linux Mint chatters on the internet today. Yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much, Destruct, for your helpfulness here today. So, Marks, before we close this out, do you have any other questions? That is great. Thank you so much, and hoping to see you next week as well. Same bat time. Yeah, 2:30 p.m. on Thursdays. Okay, all right. So, Financial Flow TV, I'm a little puzzled by your question. You said what kind of idle user uses Fedora? Well, the truth is Fedora is fairly popular. So I don't know what the term idle means. Okay. I get messages on this computer throughout the day. It's sometimes before the live comes on, I have to turn some off because it can be like a pinball machine. Okay, so I'm using it right. See, the thing is, Fedora is a stepchild to Red Hat. Okay, Red Hat Enterprise Edition. Let me not talk so quickly. Red Hat Enterprise Edition is the gold standard for a lot of companies that are running a Linux farm, server farm. Okay, is Red Hat Enterprise Edition. But Fedora takes the hand-me-downs. It used to be all in one. There was Fedora with Red Hat, but the two kind of separated. But some of the improvements that are made in Red Hat, they percolate down to Fedora. It used to be the same set of developers were working on both of it. Okay, but the community kind of had a falling out between Fedora and Red Hat when Red Hat was bought by IBM. That's the bottom line. So Fedora now is almost like a separate entity, but they get a lot of upstream improvements from Red Hat since they were formerly the same group of people. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Like I said, if you want to dip your toe in Arch and see what it's all about, I highly recommend Fedora, or as someone else recommended, Endeavor OS. Endeavor. Okay. Well, it's been fun today, and it's only fun because you all make it that way. And thank you so much for everybody being here. But if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to go ahead and close it out here at 2 hours. Are we good, everyone? I'd like to make a last call for any additional questions before I hit the end stream button now that I know where it is. It was crazy on my first live stream. I didn't know how to end it because I didn't have it in full screen on my computer screen, so the button was hidden. Well, Arch has a reputation for doing that. That's why a lot of us here like Linux Mint. It shouldn't cause a hardware problem. You need to be careful, though, with System 76 on non-System 76 hardware. Okay, so we've got a question here, and then message was retracted. Well, thank you for stopping by, Security. Come on back next week at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time Zone, United States here. No, you'll be okay with the hardware. All right. Well, I hate to close it down with 9 concurrent folks here watching. So before I do close it down, is there anybody else who'd like to ask a question? I'd sure hate to close the door here with this many people in the chat. Well, thank you very much. That's appreciated. Well, anyway, for people who just dropped in, this is a Linux Mint Hour question and answer live stream here on YouTube, and here every week on Thursdays at 2:30 p.m. starting time, Eastern Time Zone. That means it's going to be EST or EDT, whatever time of the year we're in. It's always going to be 2:30. Well, can you edit firmware? The question is. Well, firmware doesn't work that way. You replace it. You edit it, and then you replace it with the whole new bundle. It's a binary. It's a binary file. So you can't really edit a binary file. You have to have the source code. Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here and hanging in here today. I'd like to go ahead, if it's okay with everybody, to close the stream out at 2 hours and 7 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Hey, you all have a great week. Enjoy your Linux, Windows, whatever it is you're doing. Enjoy it, and we'll be back again here next week. A great group here today, and it's really been very satisfying. So thank you very much. All right. So saying goodbye from beautiful Kingsport, Tennessee. I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.